I think the surprises out of Super Tuesday are in the details. On the Republican side, it wasn't a surprise that McCain emerged. If there was a surprise, it was the continuing popularity of Mike Huckabee, particularly in southern states, particularly in those states where you have a strong conservative, maybe evangelical majority. But fact of the matter is that Mitt Romney and Mike Huckabee more or less split the very conservative states, proving that a very conservative person won't be the nominee, but reminding us that the right-wing, very conservative, evangelical part of the party is a force in the party, and it's a force that John McCain, assuming he does become the candidate, is eventually going to have to cope with. On the Democratic side, there were perhaps one or two important surprises. The most important surprise, or at least lesson, was among white women. In fact, more than half of registered Democrats in the United States are women. So the female vote, the woman vote, it represents something like 53%, 54% of the total, and overwhelmingly it voted for Hillary Clinton. Clearly, women went into the polls on Tuesday and said, for the first time in my life, I can vote for a woman who has a high likelihood of becoming president. For Obama, the biggest surprise is that there's both good news and bad news among the Hispanics. It was expected, you might reasonably say, well, he's a black man, that ought to appeal to Hispanic voters. Turns out that they split in really important ways. Hispanic voters in Mexico, from Mexico in California voted pretty heavily for Obama. Hispanic voters from the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and other islands voted in New York, voted very heavily for Hillary. In his home state of Illinois, Obama got only about 52, 53% of the Hispanic vote. And you would have expected, here's a state that knows him, that he's represented well, that either as a senator or as a state legislator, he has a powerful name in. And although he won Illinois overwhelmingly, 47% of Hispanics voted against him in Illinois, leading the pundits to say that, oops, he's got an Hispanic problem. You really have to think differently about Republicans and Democrats. As I said, John McCain is halfway there. He has to just complete his sweep of the table, and he could do that over the next couple weeks. Within the next week, we have primaries that will choose something on the order of 200 or 300 more delegates. That's not enough to put McCain over the top, but it's enough to get him pretty close. The odds that McCain is the chosen candidate of the Republican Party by the first week of March are very high. We have a very important date coming up for both parties on March 4th, where several big states will select, most importantly, Texas. And I suspect by March 5th, John McCain is the nominee of the Republican Party. On the Democratic side, this looks like it could possibly go all the way to the convention. We could come down to a situation this summer where everybody in the nation has voted, and neither Hillary nor Barack are the candidates. They can't quite get over that 2,000 total that they need, and the deciding margin comes out of these what are called superdelegates, party officials, and this will pose an enormous problem for the Democrats, because here is the party of the people. Here is the Democratic Party, who famously lost the Bush presidency. Al Gore would have been president if we just counted the votes. Here they'll have a situation where if you just count the votes, one or the other candidate would be the candidate. But they're going to come down to a closed room with a bunch of party officials making the final choice, and that could easily not happen until August. I think the reason this election is shaping the way it is, and indeed is so important, is because the country has been put in such an awful place by George Bush. Most Americans think America is in a bad place and is headed in the wrong direction. Even most Republicans today think the George Bush presidency has been a failure. Half of the people that voted for McCain and Super Tuesday don't like what George Bush has done. So this desire for change, this desire to do something different, is clearly motivating the electorate.